let's move over to the Hard 10 final, in which Sandman defeated New Jack to win the Hard 10 in a...
I forgot that this was the first thing in this feud.
There's so much stuff that happens. Like, this is our, like pivot off in, like, 4 different directions story of the month. So, like, we will go from Sandman New Jack to New Jack against the Harris Bros with Shark Boy, to Shark Boy teaming with Norman Smiley, to Sandman feuding with Don Callis. So these are the directions we're going to splinter in now.
We're just going to try and hit as much of it in a row as we can.
Yeah, so Sandman defeated New Jack to win the Hard 10 in a pretty good match where the finish was absolutely wild.
New Jack, as he is one to do, was thrown off a balcony, but did like this weird side rotation and landed directly on his face.
Yep.
And looked insane. This is the one thing I had seen from the Hard 10. This is the one thing I knew going in. Was like, I knew this bump, because I think everyone's probably seen this bump at some point. It's one of the craziest things you'll ever see.
He takes a face-first bump off a balcony through 2 tables. It is absolutely monstrous. The man could have died.
He looks like he did die.
Yeah, there's a note. New Jack caught his jaw on the side of the table while taking the balcony bump during his match with Sandman. Once New Jack returned backstage, he fell to the ground and was said to basically be out of it for the next 15 minutes. TNA officials called an ambulance to the building, but Jack refused to go to hospital for treatment. The paramedic tried to repeatedly get New Jack to go to the hospital, but he was up and around within half an hour of taking the bump and didn't go to hospital. Fair enough.
Awesome.
That is a very New Jack thing to do.
The coolest guy of all time.
So Sandman comes out on the July 9th show. Mike Tenay is presenting him with the Hard 10 trophy. Sandman pours beer into the trophy. He's walking around ringside. He's
like 4 beers, by the way.
Yeah, he just walks around ringside just pouring beer out of the trophy down the throat of fans in the crowd.
Do you think we'll ever get to this way again in a post-COVID society?
Lord, no.
You don't think we'll ever get used to it again?
It is a little bit of like, I'm watching this and I'm like, that's not very hygienic on multiple levels.
Yeah, hygiene's overrated.
So Sandman walking around ringside, he's about to walk up the ramp when he's jumped by a random large man in a suit.
Listen, the quickest way in this world to get me behind a guy is just put a big boy in a suit.
So, and then we hear the voice, Liam, of the debuting Don Callis.
The joy I felt in my heart when I heard this. The invisible hand.
Cyrus himself, Cyrus the Virus, has arrived here in the NWA-TNA as a new management consultant and manager of the man who jumped Sandman, Edward Chastain, who was Iceberg from NWA Wildside.
I knew this was Iceberg. You know how I knew this was Iceberg?
How did you know?
Because he just did his Ring of Honor stint, where he got, like, terrible reviews, and, like, it was called the worst match in Ring of Honor history. And it wasn't, by the way. Like, it was a perfectly fine squash match, and I don't get why he got so much hate.
It's basically what happened here, where he had 2 matches and was like, nah, shit, we can't bring him back.
I liked him, man. I like him. I like Iceberg, okay? And I like Don Callis, and he's doing his ECW network shtick, and I love it.
So yes, Don Callis is TNA's management consultant. So he is commenting on all the things that is wrong with TNA. As mentioned, he's like the voice of the changes to TNA. He's like, oh, the debauchery and hardcore wrestling and the naked women brawling with each other. This cannot be what TNA is about. I have to change it. I have to fix it.
One thing I didn't get about this character is, does he have legitimate stroke, or is he just the dude pretending?
No, he does have legitimate power in TNA, like as a character in storyline, and that becomes a point of conflict with the other person who is introduced as having legitimate power in TNA, which we'll talk about in a moment.
Oh god, my 2 favorites. So one thing I love about this is, like, he comes in here and he's like, oh, no hardcore wrestling, blah, 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 blah. There's like 3 Clockwork Orange House of Fun matches this month. Why aren't you intervening in that?
Well, to be fair, he does suspend Jerry Lynn at one stage. He does fire Just Incredible. He is trying to stamp down on it.
Garrett, the last match was a Clockwork Orange House of Fun with 3 people that included a woman.
Yeah, but would you want to mess with the demons?
No, that's the thing. Maybe at least give me a segment where James Mitchell is paying him off or something. Come on.
You know what happened? He saw the segment where they threw the fireball at Mickie James. Saw how her hair caught fire, and he's like, I don't want my hair to catch fire. It's too luscious. So I'll stay away from them.
Yeah. I mean, Don Callis without hair, I just couldn't imagine it.
So, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 54, Edward Chastain has a squash match against Norman Smiley, before which Don Callis cuts his promo about talking about his management consultant approach. He has an MBA, you see, Liam. It's Don Callis MBA.
He's so good. He's like, because he's like such a scumbag, and he plays it so well.
Very
and
well.
Especially, I think maybe my favorite segment of the whole month was his sit down with Mike Tenay.
Yeah, last show of the month he has a sit down with Mike Tenay where he's talking all about his like management approach, and like my favorite thing, it's such a small touch, but he refers to fans as customers, and like just the little touch of a wrestling authority figure heel being like, oh, the customers, yes, yeah. It's like, oh, that's such good heat.
And his ethos of like, listen, like, I've crunched the numbers. I know what actually, like, these fans, they think they want one thing, but I see how it's represented in the numbers. And that's different, which is, like, a legitimate thing that happens. Like, sometimes the things that get over in the building are not the things that are over in the ratings. So it's like, it's an interesting point to bring up.
I always think that's a disconnect between booking and crowds, though, as opposed to a disconnect between crowds and crowds. You know, it's not like the people in the buildings are different from the people on TV. I just think the people booking the show have not necessarily correctly capitalized on what the people in the buildings are seeing.
But I also think some acts are inherently more well suited to a live audience. Because like some acts are more showy and like for the people in the crowd, you know, and then some are like translate well to television audiences who aren't there feeling it in the moment. Like the Adam Rose stuff. That was something that was like firmly over for crowds, because crowds got to be like, especially that small crowd that in NXT, like they was like, that was all a part of like, you got to be there and experience and be a part of it, as opposed to watch this guy on TV come out with a bunny.
Not the good bunny either.
They should have had Don Callis do the downsizing for that character.
So, Chastain defeated Norman Smiley in a squash match. So, yeah, the TNA interview took place on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 55, where he sat down with Don, talked about how the customers don't know what they want. He was basically doing Nick Khan before he saw Nick Khan. I did love
his line about, like... Sorry, we were about to say the same thing, I think.
About the knowing business but not wrestling?
Yeah. He does the Tony Khan line then. He's like, I know business and wrestling.
Yeah, when Tony Khan was being mean to Ted Turner and Eric Bischoff got very mad. He's like, Ted Turner knew business but not wrestling, whereas I know both. And that's exactly what Don Callis was on about here. He's like, there has been two kinds of executives in the history of wrestling. People who know wrestling but not business, and people who know business but not wrestling. And Don is like, I am the person who knows both.
Yeah. Good shit.
So clearly Tony Khan had watched this 2003 NWA-TNA angle with Don Callis.
He was probably fucking at the show.
And then last show of the month, Sandman faces Edward Chastain. Sandman wins. The only notable thing about this match was Chastain did a cannonball off the apron to the floor, and the thud it made when he hit the floor was like, good lord.
I wouldn't given up on this guy. I don't know, man. I would have done something. I liked Chastain. He had 2 2-star matches, but sure, I liked him.
We learn on commentary, because Don is on commentary for this match, we learned that Jerry Lynn has been suspended, New Jack has been fired, and Goldie. He just mentions offhand.
Well, because like they already mentioned that, though, at this point, on screen. But like they never mentioned it before that, so it was confusing.
Yeah, and a fun like backstage like art imitating life moment is like Sandman drove from his home in Philadelphia to Baltimore, where he flies out of for TNA shows. After making the long drive, Sandman found out that TNA had not booked an airline ticket for him because he was not booked on the show. No word as to whether there was miscommunication between Sandman and the office, or if he just assumed he was going to be booked for the show. So I liked like during the thing in which there's an angle where management consultant Don Callis is trying to fire Sandman and get rid of hardcore wrestling and eliminate all of this debauchery. There is a legitimate moment of miscommunication where Sandman is actually not booked on a show.
They should have played that up. They should have had JB cover that in his fucking rag sheet.
The column on the website where he reveals all the scoops.
Yeah, it should have been like, hey, just so you know, Sandman was trying to get here but didn't get a ticket.
And Don was on commentary, which I quite enjoyed, because he was like, you know, Don West, 2 Dons here. That's a little brand confusion. Please change your name.
Don's like, I've had it longer.
I'm older than you. You change your name.
And yeah, it's fun to be like in this 2022 world now, where it's like Don Callis been a major part of wrestling, but also like a commentator in a bunch of giant matches.
Yeah, and a commentator for Impact, and an actual behind-the-scenes executive for Impact. So it's fun that the character he's playing here is basically the person he would become in the company like 15 years later.
Yeah.
Again, art imitating life, or life imitating art in this instance. Yeah, good stuff with Don Callis. Enjoyable character on the show.
100%.